Hey, MotoAmerica fans, this is Paul Carruthers. I'm the communications manager for MotoAmerica, and this is our weekly podcast, Off Track. We do this every single week, believe it or not. I think we're well over 100 of these now, which is kind of crazy. So that's 100 weeks in a row, which I can't imagine that we're even able to get together that often. But I do this with Sean Bice. Hey, Sean's in Ohio. I'm in Southern California. Our guest today is kind of in the middle of California somewhere, and we'll talk to him in a few minutes. But how's everything going there, Sean?
Oh, it's going great. You know, I don't know if I can say that I'm going to just say it. I think the biggest thing I want for Christmas or for a holiday gift, if I need to be PC on it, I'm not sure, is I want to know who's racing Superbikes this year. I mean, I know we have some idea, but it's like, it would be the greatest gift to me if some of these teams would make some announcements. And I saw, like, you probably saw it too, Paul, you know, there's a press release from World Superbike yesterday, and there are a couple seats there that haven't been named. But for us, I mean, there are a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of stuff that we expect is going to happen, but I'm just dying to know. And our season ended later, so we haven't even been waiting as long as normal, but it's such a different year this year. It feels like that. I really want that for a gift, if these teams would do it for us.
Wow, I wish I could give you that, but that's not going to happen. I don't know. I don't understand it. I mean, I think just everything takes longer to put together as far as the sponsors and all that stuff. So I think that's why things tend to drag along, but it is kind of annoying. MotoGPs can be annoying the other way. Like they'll sign a guy in, like, you know, June for the next year, and then the guy's riding for a team that he's not going to ride for next year. That seems a little weird too. So their silly season also tends to go in cycles. It seems like all those guys have contracts like that started at the same time and end at the same time. So there's some years when nobody changes. But for us this year, obviously it's a huge change, because not only are there some holes open in you know, some of the top teams, but also the guys that get those are going to be vying for a championship that we're going to have a new champion. I mean, there's no way around it. With Cameron leaving to go to Moto 2, that leaves it wide open. So I don't know. I think it's, I read an interview with Bobby Fong somewhere this morning. And he said he doesn't have anything. He's not signed anything yet, which we kind of knew, but that's for some actually seeing him say it. So it's going to be interesting, but like you said, it'd be nice to get it going, because I think that's what really gets people pumped up and gets them excited, and they can start to see, oh, this guy's going to be on this bike and he's going to get his ass kicked, or this guy's going to dominate, or whatever. They can start that little fan stuff that they do. So we'll get it here eventually, but let's switch gears a little bit and get to today's guest. I've known Jake Zemke for a long time, as you have. Mm-hmm. He's been in our paddock for, you know, since the beginning of time in some way or another. Obviously he's been racing. He raced for a long time. It's funny going through his accomplishments. You actually forget how much he's done and how successful he was. It's easy to think of him now in his current role, where he's a manager with the Wasserman Group, or an agent, however you want to term it. But he did a lot of racing in a lot of different places. I'd completely forgotten that he did like a World Superbike season. He did British Superbike. But as far as AMA racing goes, he did earn the Formula Xtreme Championship in 2008. You also look at his career, and he's got like a lot of seconds and thirds in championships that must have been frustrating for him.
Got a pole at Daytona one year. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But he did win that title in 2008. I'm curious to talk to him. Actually, I'd like to find out what meant more to him, winning that championship or actually winning 5 Superbike races. I tend to think it probably might be actually winning those 5 AMA Superbike races, because it's pretty much a big deal. But there's also that thing of winning a title. Let's bring Jake in. Jake, how are you?
What's happening, boys?
Hey, we get all that right?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah.
Okay, let's start off. Tell me, which is more important to you, those Superbike wins or that title?
You know what? At the end of the day, none of it even matters.
Well, you know,
it really doesn't. I mean, no,
right.
I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say because they all meant different things at different times when they were happening, right? Like,
right.
you know, the very first Superbike wins I had in my rookie season in 2004 were a big deal because it was something I had worked for a long time, was to get on a Superbike, and finally having that opportunity with Honda and with Kevin Arian, like it was really cool. And to be able to actually show that I was capable of winning races, you know, in the Superbike class, it was really good. But that was also frustrating. I mean, that year, I don't know the exact records, but I know that in 2004, you know, you talked about all the second and third place championship finishes, but that year I finished second in like, I don't know how many races in a row, and they didn't even equal like 0.3 of a second or something.
No,
like
I remember that. I remember the one that seemed totally painful to me, and I may be wrong because I'm old, but like, I think it was Sears Point.
Oh,
and,
yeah. Stop already.
And what?
I said stop already.
And like, you almost came from like nowhere and beat you in the last lap, right?
Yeah, it was insane. Like, I swear to God, I think I had a 3-second lead going into the last lap or something.
Exactly.
And it was 2.5. It was like 2.5.
Yeah.
And I backed off just that little bit, just to be careful. And Miguel ran the fastest lap that he had run the whole weekend by like a second. Like, it was insane. Like, I don't know how he did it. Like, that guy, well, he was a legend, you know. And
well, right. That just falls right in line with his life, you know.
Yeah, right. So he just pulled off one of those things. But no, back then, like the tires that we had, that was before the good UK N-Tex, Dunlop N-Tex, and like the tires would go off. So, you know, just being a rookie, I would always just, you know, hammer off the start, and I'd get like these 6-second leads or whatever, 5 or 6 seconds. And then I'm just trying to manage it in those last couple laps of the race. But then my tire would be so far gone that the guys that, you know, had the experience on those tires over that amount of distance, they would save their tire, and then they'd have more tire than me at the end. And yeah, Miguel got me once or twice. Mladen got me a couple times, man. It was a tough learning process. But so to get those couple wins in that in my rookie year there, it was a real good feeling. And I think I finished third in the championship that year. I was in second right up to the last race, but that was a weird year. I think we like rained out Virginia, and then we had to come back at the end of the season, and then it was a 2-day event, just on a Saturday and a Sunday instead of a 3-day. And
yeah, it was a weird year.
Yeah, it was. And I remember high-siding out of the last corner at Virginia in like Sunday morning warm-up or whatever, or Saturday, whatever it was, whatever. I don't know if we had I think we had 2 races that weekend. So I think it was like Saturday, like before the race. And I high-sided out of the last corner and knocked myself silly. And luckily I'd already signed my Honda contract, and Chuck Miller from Honda, our team manager, was just like, hey, you know, there's no reason for you to go out there and risk anything. Like, Honda's going to get second and third in the championship, whether it's you or Miguel. There's not, you know, you're already signed up for next year. Like, we don't want to see you go and hit your head again and, you know, have something bad happen. So I sat out those last 2 races, but still finished third in the championship, which was pretty cool for my rookie year.
Even when you won that race at Brainerd, it was a freaky race.
Oh, yeah.
You remember,
sure.
like, it started raining, and then the corner worker ran on the track, and Duhamel slowed down, and you didn't, and it was really weird. And
yeah, it was bizarre. So we had already like, it started misting on the last lap, like coming into the last couple corners, and you know, I was hell-bent on winning. And I don't know if somebody had already crashed or not. Yeah, there was a corner worker that ran across the track, or maybe that happened after. It was weird because we crossed the finish line with the checkered flag, and then after we had already, the first 3 guys had crossed the finish line, then they threw the red flag after us. Right. So it was weird. So they said basically, like, since we got the checkered flag, our race was complete, and then everybody else that was behind us who hadn't taken the checkered flag, they reverted back a lap. Yeah. So it was a bizarre finish.
Well, I looked it was funny this morning. I decided to look in the Cycle News archives because I wanted to read the report on it to get some more information. And the funny thing was Duhamel's explanation of how the safety was handled there. In typical Duhamel style, he said, I think that racing, which is what we do, is not like traveling cross country, going to like Six Flags or something. If it rains or snows, you just keep going and you pee in a cup. You just keep going. you've got to get to Six Flags. For racing, I think when we establish that you're supposed to stop in the rain, it should stop.
Yeah.
But that sounds like him. Now, what also I thought was interesting, and this is probably a little known fact, but that race that you won in Brainerd, it was the first time in his career that Josh Hayes ever led a lap of a superbike race.
No way. That's funny. Yeah, he was on the Cowie, on the attack Cowie.
Yeah, he led the first lap, and then you guys smoked him after that, and I think he ended up like 6th. But that's kind of cool because obviously he went on to win a few of those races. But
yeah,
there was a lot of good racing back then.
Jake, what was it about Brainerd? You had quite a bit of success there. That track isn't that track a clockwise track, right? It's not counterclockwise, is it?
Yeah, it's clockwise. Yeah.
Which I'm just thinking, you with your background in flat track, I mean, I was
never one of those guys, man. You're getting confused with the Bostrums or something.
Well, I mean, I know that you did flat track. I was thinking, yeah.
I never had a problem going right. Like, even when I was a kid, I remember, man, I must have been like 9 years old or something, and we went to a TT somewhere, and actually it was at Bellotto Park. It was in Hollister, California, and Michelle DeSalvo beat me. Michelle is she works for Zanotti Racing and tunes Briar Bauman's Indian. Well, I think she's still at Zanotti. I know she was in his first championship. I think she's still there, but she was faster than me in the right-hander. So my dad, that week when we came home, like, I had a track in my backyard, and literally he would not, like, I couldn't go left until I could go just as fast right as I could left.
Wow.
And then, like, after that, I never had a problem going right ever again in my life.
That's smart. That's really good. So what was it about Brainerd? I mean, that turn 1, you had to have large cojones to get through turn 1 fast. Can you talk about that track since we don't go there anymore? I mean,
man, I loved Brainerd. I won my first, I think I won my first Formula Xtreme race at Brainerd.
And you also won your first Super Sport race there.
No, I take that back. I won my first Formula Xtreme race at Willow Springs, but I won my first 600 Super Sport race at Brainerd. I won my first Superbike race at Brainerd. Always did good there. I just love the track. The faster flowing tracks were more my style, more so than the stop and go tracks. I always preferred that. Like, even, later on when Miller Motorsports Park opened up, I always loved going there. I always loved going to Road America. Just the faster tracks with the faster corners. It seemed like so many tracks in America are like second gear corners, and sometimes a third gear corner. We don't have too many tracks where you're in like fourth gear or anything in the corners. So those faster flowing tracks where you can just kind of like piece the whole track together, those were the ones that I always preferred. Even though I did well at the stop and go tracks too, like it just seemed like, if I had a choice, I would have rather gone to, something that flowed a little bit better.
So Jake, what actually was your last race?
So my last professional race would have been in 2014 on the Geico Honda with the M4 boys, Chris Ulrich, John Ulrich. That season was a weird season. It was the last season before MotoAmerica became, so that was the last season where DMG was still running things. And I think we started the year with like 5 races on the schedule, and then they got Laguna Seca with World Superbikes. We ended up with 6 races that year, no television. Like, it was just a mess.
Yeah, it was.
Jake, I totally remember that now. That was the year I remember at Sonoma or Infineon or whatever we called it then, you were racing, I think, was Benny Solis and maybe Joe Roberts involved too?
Yeah, that was during the, because Ulrich put on the Geico
shootout. Yeah, that's right. That's what it was.
Yeah, unfortunately at Sonoma, I had a water line come off.
I remember that.
And all 3 of us, myself, Benny, and Joe Roberts, all crashed in my water. I high-sided, and they both hit it and low-sided behind me, and their bikes piled into me and into a wall, and that one kind of hurt.
Yeah, it's bad. That was bad.
But the season finished off good. I finished on the podium. It rained there at New Jersey, so our bikes they weren't quite up to the task that year, and luckily the rain kind of evened things out, and I was able to put the thing on the podium there on the last weekend that I raced professionally. So that was kind of a cool little send off, and yeah, it would have been better to win, but I guess, but I still ended up on the podium.
It's amazing when we look back at your career. I still, and I don't know, maybe Paul does too, but I still completely associate you with Honda. But it's incredible to look at what you rode. I mean, you raced for Jordan. You were on a Triumph. You were on a Ducati. You raced a lot of different bikes for a guy that's sort of known as a Honda specialist. Do you still think that fans know you more for Honda than anything else?
Yeah, probably. Because I mean, I raced professionally. I think it was 18 seasons. So, you know, in those seasons, yeah, I rode Harley Davidson, I rode Suzuki, I rode Hondas, I rode Suzuki's again, then I rode Ducati, the Triumph, I rode a BMW in World Endurance. I rode a Yamaha at Daytona one year. I rode a lot of different motorcycles for sure, and but the over half of my career was spent on Hondas. You know, I think 9 or 10 years of my career was spent on Hondas. So a lot of people remember that. And not only that, that was the quote unquote glory days, right? So everybody remembers those days.
You know, and I wanted to ask you, when you raced for Arian Honda, was your bike different than the factory Hondas?
The Superbike? Or,
the
Superbike was not. So in 2004, my rookie year, that Superbike would have been similar to Kevin Windham's Supercross bike back in the day, where he was running out of the factory connection truck, but he had a full works bike. It was the same thing. So my bike was a full works HRC bike that year, same as Ben and same as Miguel's. So
was that the best bike you ever rode?
One of them for sure. Yeah. I mean, that thing was the only downfall was that was the first year model of that bike, so it had a couple issues. And, you know, basically when you got an HRC bike, you got it, and that was it until about after Suzuka. So after Suzuka 8 hour, then you would get one update for the last part of the season. And then that was it. So if there was any kind of problems or issues with the bike, like, you just had to deal with it until hopefully that update came and things got a little bit better. So, you know, for the most part though, yeah, I mean, that bike was great. Like, that bike was ahead of its time at the time, and it was good. I mean, it was the only time I had a true works Superbike to race, was just that my rookie season. It probably spoiled me a little bit.
Yeah, I would think. You mentioned earlier about tires. Now, it's funny because these guys today go like, you know, they'll say like, oh, my tires went off or whatever. But when your tires went off back then, they really went off, right? I mean, compared to now.
Oh yeah, it could be a couple seconds a lap, 2 or 3 seconds a lap from the start of the race to the end of the race, easily.
Yeah, and I remember that was like you touched on it a little earlier. I mean, that sometimes was the difference between a guy winning and getting fourth or what have you, was how he, you know, you never really knew what was going to happen until the end of a race because somebody's tires might go off.
Yeah. Those early days, man, it was a little tough. Like, you definitely had to manage the tire, especially in the Superbike races. And coming off, we used to have like the big Formula Xtreme bikes where it was kind of run what you brung. It was anything goes. You know, we were running 954 Hondas, and I think that thing was like a 1088 or a 1050 something. I don't know how big it was. It was big though. And but the races were short enough, you didn't really have to worry about the tires too much. But the Superbike races were long enough where tire conservation definitely came into play. You know, how you managed your tire throughout the race. And being a rookie, man, I just wanted to go. I just wanted to win.
Yeah. I think the favorite bike you ever rode, that for me anyway, was, man, those Formula Xtreme Hondas were unbelievable. I love to talk to John Ethel about those days and those bikes. That had to be a special bike to ride, huh?
The big ones or the little ones? Because
the little one, 600.
The little ones, yeah, they were a lot of fun. You know, I mean, those things, they were like little mini super bikes.
Exactly.
You know, they had everything done to them. We had, you know, rods, pistons, you know, headwork, this, that, electronics. We had wheels, brakes, forks, you know, linkage, you name it. We had just about everything you could put on one of those things. And I mean, outside of swing arms, like, that was the one thing I think that had to stay stock, was the swing arm. I don't think you could you couldn't change the swing arm, but other than that, like, it was a little mini super bike, and they were a lot of fun to ride. They had enough horsepower to spin the tire, yet they were super light and maneuverable. But the funny part is like, some tracks we would go to and we would be like at least 2 seconds a lap faster than the Super Sport 600s. And then you'd show up at some track and it'd be like the times were the exact same. Like you couldn't go any faster on the Formula Xtreme bike than you could on the 600
Wow.
Supersport. Yeah, it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, them being so high spec like that, that's incredible.
Yeah, it really was. It was kind of amazing. Like it was almost frustrating in a way because you get to tracks and you'd always expect you should go faster on the Formula Xtreme bike. But I remember there was 1 or 2 tracks we would go to, and it'd be like the times would be the exact same on both bikes.
I mean, those bikes were even more advanced than the super sport bikes that we have in MotoAmerica now. Wouldn't you say? I mean, they definitely had more done to the engines, right? Like you said.
Yeah, they did. They did. I don't remember the exact rules, of the class back then, but
Me either. But they were quite advanced. I remember.
Yeah, they were. And I mean, I want to say, and I know that they never really stretched them out as far as they could, right? They always had more horsepower in the back pocket, but engine life was always the key ingredient, right? And so, we only needed as much horsepower as we needed to win, and we didn't really need to make more than that because it would just make the maintenance life on the thing pretty ridiculous. So
right,
they kept them detuned a little bit just to salvage some time, and if they ever needed it, they could have tuned the things up even more than what they did. But yeah, those things were a lot of fun. They were a lot of fun to ride.
I want to ask you about one other thing about your career, Jake. You had mentioned, bumping your head a couple times. And I mean, I understand with road racers, superbike riders, your injury is kind of part of it. And I know you got hurt a few times, but it strikes me as that your career, you didn't really get hurt that much, or maybe I just didn't notice it. I don't think of you as being an injury-prone rider, as somebody who had to deal with that a lot. Am I wrong about that, or did you stay pretty healthy throughout?
No, you're correct. In those, I think it was 18 seasons I raced professionally, and in those 18 seasons, I never once missed a race.
Wow.
Like, I missed that race in 2004 of actually lining up for the grid, but I think that was the only time I ever didn't line up on a grid. Like, I never missed a race weekend because I was hurt or injured.
Wow.
Pretty fortunate in that fact. Like, I did break my arm less than 10 days before Daytona in 2001, but Dr. Ting put a big old plate and some screws in that thing, and he said, well, your arm will be fine as long as you can handle the pain. So I went down there and raced, and and then back in those days we had like a month off after Daytona, so it gave me time to heal up after that. But yeah, I was very fortunate, and I still feel that I am today. I'm very healthy, and all my body parts work. And I was just over in Spain with Cam Beaubier for his first test on the Moto2 bike, and I'm over there. I've known Hopper since he started racing professionally, right? When he was 16, when he first showed up in our paddock, and he's sitting there, and you watch Hopper moving around, and it just looks painful, and he's like, yeah, I've had 37 surgeries. You're like, man, that's unreal. So I consider myself very fortunate in that respect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that brings us to a good point in their conversation here is with Cameron, as your role as for the Wasserman Group. I mean, he's your number one charge at this point, right? And you did just get back from Spain with him. Now, as his agent manager, you obviously believe that he's made the right decision by going to Moto2, and I think he showed that at least initially at the test. What was that a difficult process to make that happen or to go in that direction?
Yes and no. I mean, I've believed in Cam since before I was even managing him. Like 2013, I went over and rode for the factory BMW team at the 2 24-hour World Endurance races. And that team was owned by Michael Bartholomew, who at the time was running all of Mark VDS's stuff in MotoGP. And he had asked me back then in 2013, hey, is there any Americans, this, that, any kids coming up, like, for Moto2 that we could look at? And I said, yeah, this kid named Cam Beaubier. He's killing it on a 600 right now. And I said, he's got what it takes to make it over here. And, and I talked to Cam about it because he's like, hey, talk to him and see if he'd be interested, in coming over here. And so I talked to him, and at the time, he was on a roll of winning all the 600 races, and he had a Yamaha Superbike contract sitting right in front of him. And, it's like I said, hey, if you're interested, they're interested in having a look, and if it's something that interests you, going back to the World Championship. And at the time, he was looking at a Superbike contract with Yamaha, going, man, like, he just worked his way into that, and everything had been going good, and he was happy. Yamaha had given him a shot in 2012, and he got hurt in 12 with his knee, and then in 13 he kind of ran the table with the 600, and he chose to go on the Superbike, which was totally fine and cool. And fast forward that 1 year, and I was coming to the end of my career racing, and it was always it was pretty much on the table for me when I was done racing to go to work for Wasserman. I was Wasserman's first road race athlete they ever hired. So back in 2000, was that 2? I think it was 2002, 2001, 2002. It was still the family. I was actually with them before Wasserman bought out the family.
Yeah.
Were you there before Bob Moore?
No, same time.
Okay.
I came in at the same time as Bob.
Okay.
So when Bob started at Wasserman was the same time I had approached Bob about managing me, and I wasn't happy with what was going on with the current management I had, and Bob said, well, yeah, just get out of your deal and then we can talk, but I can't talk to you until you're completely free of whatever management company you're with. So did that, and like I said, I was signed on, and soon after that was Hopper. I think we were the first two. Well, I know we were the first two, and we were the first two that were there with the family, and before the buyout, before Wasserman bought out the family. And so I've been with them for a long time, and Bob had always taken care of me through all those years, and it was good, and we still have a great relationship today. Me and Bob are very good friends, and basically he entrusted me with looking after our U.S. athletes while Bob still takes care of all the guys over in MotoGP. So that's my role with Wasserman, is to look after the U.S. side of things. And obviously when the opportunity came up for Cam to, we've talked about it over the years about going to World Superbike or this or that. And Moto 2, we've kind of thought about it or talked about it, but it just really briefly. It was never really the target per se, just because of for one, it's a tough class, but for two, if you go to Moto 2, it's got to be just a stepping stone to get to MotoGP. It can't be like you don't want to be a career Moto 2 racer. Right. There's a few guys that you see out in the paddock that have been there for a long time, and they're never going to go anywhere except Moto 2. And that couldn't be that's not the goal for Cam, right? And that's not what we envisioned for him, is to just be there in Moto 2 or to be a guy to fill that grid. The goal is to go over there and make a good showing, and a good enough showing to get himself into MotoGP. And that's what the goal is. And that's, it's setting the bar awfully high, but at the same time, I've been around racing for a long time, and I've seen guys, and, I really believe in Cam's ability and his talent and his level, and that not only that, but his ability to adapt as well. And I've seen it through the years in different situations. A lot of times everybody just sees the race and they see the outcome. They see he wins a race or whatever, and they think, oh man, like, that was great. When you're standing on the backside, sometimes, issues come up. Like, there's no race team that's perfect. There's not ever a year goes by where the guys don't have to work through issues, right, that are going on. And I've seen Cam be able to adapt and overcome issues with his bike to the point where most guys probably would have just rolled the thing down pit lane and said, I'm not riding this thing, but yet somehow he's still fighting for podiums and wins when that happens. And it's a big testament to his riding ability and his adaptability on the bike. And I think that's one of the reasons why he'll be able to succeed in Moto 2, is that he's very adaptable. And I think, we already saw that in his first test. Like, it didn't take him long to get up to a pretty decent pace on a bike he'd never ridden. It's far different from anything he's ever ridden.
Yeah, it was incredible. Hey, Jake, I want to talk a little bit about your role as an agent, because, I think about traditional agents. Way back in the days of Gary Howard, when he worked with Wayne Rainey, or, Doug Gondo or Norm Viano, you're kind of different. I get it, the fact that you're a former racer, so it makes sense that you would be hands-on as much as you are, but your role with Cameron has been really interesting. I mean, you've been with him through, obviously Rick Hobbs is his crew chief, and then Stan Boley this past season. And you function, when you sit with him in the pit box, you're not there as an agent. You're there kind of as I guess as a riding coach and a confidant or whatever. It seems like your role is a lot more involved than just kind of, getting contracts for Cam. And obviously you've explained that with how long you've been with him, but can you explain how your role is very different than what I think of as a traditional agent?
Yeah, I do have different roles with Cam, I mean, because I do have other clients that we represent in the paddock,
Right.
from Wasserman, and we're doing their contracts and doing those things. But Cam, I have a different, I have multiple roles with Cam. And one of them is as being his agent or manager per se, however you want to call it. And I've got another role with Cam that goes beyond that. That's kind of outside of that territory, which is exactly what you're explaining. It's what I don't know what you want to call it. I don't know if you want to call it a coach. I don't know if you want to call it a confidant. Whatever it is, just the guy who's there. But I'm just there in the background, really. And but there is, like I said, there's multiple roles I have with Cam, and that I do with Cam that is beyond just being his agent or his manager. And ultimately the goal is just to get him to where he wants to be, and get the best results that he can. And it shortcuts a lot of it. I mean, I've been there. I had a long career myself, and I've seen a lot of things, and I've been in a lot of situations. And, I have no doubt that Cam would make it as far as he wants to go in the sport, without me. That's for sure. But, if sometimes I can shortcut some of those things and help him to figure out something that might have taken him a little bit longer to figure out. And we can, just go, hey, man, this is what I did in this situation, or this is how we approached it, and this is what I learned over the years. Like, he can take some of that information away and hopefully shorten his own learning curve, right? And so that he doesn't have to go through some of those same trials that I did when I was racing. And if we do that, then and not all of it works. Like, there's plenty of times I'll tell Cam to go try something out on the racetrack, and he'll come in and say, that's not, that I didn't feel much of a difference, or that didn't work. But then there's other times I'll, mention something that I'll see or whatever, and he'll be like, oh man, hey, keep reminding me to do that. Like, and it helps him. So, and a lot of it too is, like I said, it's just maintaining his focus and maintaining his, his thoughts and everything else while we're at the racetrack, and just trying to control the situations. And every weekend's different, and and a lot of things come up during those weekends that a lot of people don't see. But the main part is how you manage that and how you get through it.
What happens between races? Is it's probably not a case of, hey, Cam, see you in a month. Is there communication and stuff that goes on throughout the when there's breaks between races, or even the off season?
Yeah, I doubt there's a week that goes by we don't talk.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk pretty regular. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how to describe our whole situation. Like, it's almost like a big brother, little brother type situation, I guess. I mean, it's we're really good friends beyond just doing business together. And I think that's something that will continue on long after he's done racing or whatever. It's kind of similar to my own relationship with Bob Moore. Like, Bob was he's always been a very good influence and a very good person and a very good friend. And I mean, our relationship now, I mean, we're going on 20 years of working together.
Wow.
In one form or another. And I don't see that changing. Like, Bob will always be a good friend of mine. And, we built that relationship over a long period of time. And I kind of feel the same way with Cam. Like, it's just a relationship that's built over time, and it's really good. And, but I also don't want to take away from my other guys. Like, there's, I look after other guys in the paddock as well, JD Beach and Matthew Skoltz. And we're back working with Josh Heron again. We worked with him previously for a lot of years, and he left and kind of did his own thing for a couple of years, and now he's back as well. So, and those guys, you know, they all need to feel the love, right? And it's not just Cam, but like I said, my deal with Cam's a little bit different, and I don't even know how to, like I said, I don't really know how to describe it, but I have multiple roles with Cam. And I guess that's the easiest way to describe our relationship.
Yeah, it really does show with you there, and what the commitment you have to him. You know, it's funny about Bob Moore. I mean, I still to this day, and this just shows my age too. I mean, I still think of him as being world 125 motocross champion. You know, I always think it when I see him. I understand the years of him being an agent, but I still think of him being as a rider like I do with you, Jake. But that transitions into a question I have for you regarding having been a rider and now a rider coach, a confidant, and an agent. Do you get as much of a thrill or satisfaction out of seeing your riders, or let's just say Cameron Beaubier, do what he's doing as you did when you raced?
That's a weird question. I don't think as a racer, and as a racer who's won races, that feeling can't be described, right? Like, nobody understands the way that feels or what that is unless you've done it. And so yes and no. Yes, I still get enjoyment out of watching the guys race, and that's all the guys, right? And I'm just super excited for them when I know the work that these guys all put in, right? And I've got some of the hardest working guys in the paddock, but at the same time, like, you see that amount of work, and the work's always the same, if not more, when things aren't going their way, you know, as opposed to winning races. So when they win, you're just happy for them, and you're happy that they're, you know, getting out of it what they're putting into it, and that they're accomplishing their goals, and they're you know, making it all happen. And it's nice to be there and to enjoy that with them. But at the same time, like, a lot of people, there's people, you know, that watch our races or whatever, and like, or they'll come out to a race, to a MotoAmerica race, and they'll see me in the paddock, and they're like, "Oh, hey, what are you doing here? Like, what do you do?" Because I try not to be in the limelight. Like, it's not my time. My time's already passed. Like, this is these guys' time, and it's their time to be in the spotlight. And I don't, you know, I don't want to take credit for any of that. Like, that this is all on them, right? This is their chosen path, and it's their effort that they're putting in, not mine, you know, and they should reap the rewards for it. And I try to stay out of the picture. Like, I'm not there to have somebody toot my horn, you know, like I had a career in racing, and it was a great career, and I'm, you know, happy with what I accomplished. But this is these guys' time to shine, you know, not mine. So it's cool. It's cool to be a little bit of part of it, and, you know, to think that you might've had a little influence on them, or that you were able to help them in some way. But at the same time, like, you know, yes, I do get excited when my guys win, and I'm very excited. You know, there's been a couple times where I've had a full Wasserman podium, Superbike podium. You know, last year when JD was up there too, I had JD, Skoltz, and Cam on the podium. It was like, that's almost like a proud dad moment, right? You're like, oh man, all my guys are up there, man. This is awesome. And so that's a good feeling for sure. But at the same time, it's a bit different than when you're actually out there doing the work yourself.
You know, Jake, what you described is a very apt description of the way you are in the paddock. Cause I can totally agree with you. And I see that with you. It's kind of weird for fans like us that have been around you for a long time and seen you race, to see you there in the paddock. And it's like, well, there's Jake Zemke sitting there, but he's not making him, you know, he's wearing black. He's sort of, you know, if you know who he is, you know where to look for him, but he doesn't jump in this limelight. He's never like right there, you know, hugging Cameron minute he gets off the bike, which you certainly have a right to do. But you're right. You do a good job of being behind the scenes on that. And I will tell you that that's a noticeable thing, and appreciated, I think, because it's cool to be the guy that's behind the scenes like you're doing. That's a great role. But back to your racing thing, you know, we hear this, I know you've heard this from Hayes a few times yourself about how he hasn't retired. He's not going to retire. Did you actually ever retire from racing technically?
Yeah. I mean, I never put out an announcement, but
right.
I mean, when I was done, I knew I was done. And, you know, it was tough. After the economic decline, you know, and Honda pulling out, and then I rode for Jordan for 1 year in 2010. 11, I started the season. I had nothing. The very last minute, we decided, I got a call from Perry Melnichek and decided to go down and do the Daytona 200. And we were able to put the thing on pole, and we were actually leading the race and led the most laps of the race. But that was the year they had the red flag and the whole tire debacle and the 3-hour delay. And, and we ended up finishing the race in third, which I still to this day felt like I should have won. I felt like I had the best package and the best bike. And, but like the rest of that season, I didn't really have anything. And that's when I went over to BSB and I did 4 rounds over there and kind of checked that out and to see if that was, somewhere I wanted to be or somewhere I wanted to go with my career. And didn't really think that was, the series is good over there for sure. And it's competitive, but, for the amount that the guys were getting paid, it didn't make sense for me to go over there to move my family to England to, make pennies. So, from a financial standpoint, that didn't make sense. And then 2012, I rode a privateer Ducati here in the States and was basically, just riding that thing for whatever purse money I could make. And in 13, same thing. I rode the BMW World Endurance bike. I finished the season on the Riders Discount Triumph. They brought me in for the last couple races of the year, the last 3 races of the year, to help them because to understand what was going on. They had Joey Pasquarella racing for him, who the previous year had won the Daytona 200. And they seemed to be struggling and they didn't know why. And so we were able to come in there and help them get their bike sorted out a good bit. And then, that led to them winning the 214 with Danny Eslick. And he had a great year that year and challenged for the title all year long. And, and like I said, in 14, I rode for them 4 guys, and it was just the writing was on the wall. Like I wasn't making enough money racing to pay my bills. So at some point I had to stop. And, that was the reality of it. I mean, I wasn't going to continue to strain my family because I wanted to go ride a motorcycle, Right. So, having basically 4 years of racing where I wasn't making enough money to even cover our bills, and I'm basically spending money that I had made, through the earlier parts of my career, just so we could pay the bills so I could go race. It felt kind of selfish. So, decided to join the real world and get a job, and which is fine. Like I said, when I was done racing, I was done. Yeah, I will say in 2015, it was a little hard being in the paddock at all the races still with me not racing, and seeing guys out there I knew I could beat, and like, man, if I just had that opportunity, but the reality of it was I was, I don't know how old I was probably 38 or something at that point or something. Like it was over, and it was fine. Like it was what it was. And I was okay with it. Like I said, I had a good career, and it wasn't until at some point somebody wanted some of my stats or something for something. And so I sat down and figured all that out, like what I accomplished over my career. And it was a good run. Like I had over 100 podium finishes. I had, I think, 26 wins. I finished 12 times. I finished the championship in the top 3 of a championship 12 times. So
wow, that's a good job.
Yeah, I had a good career, and I'm healthy. That's the most important thing. Like I'm comfortable. I'm healthy. I'm not in pain every day when I wake up, and not all guys can say that. And so I feel fortunate that I had a great career and I was able to race as long as I did. And but everybody's time, there comes a time for the end for everybody. So my time, that was 2014, and like I said, I was a little itchy in 15, but after that, like, I'm totally good with it. Like I'm happy with where I'm at these days.
That's all right. Well, that's not a bad place to stop. I've just got one more question for you. Where with Cameron going overseas next year, where are we going to see Jake Zemke next year? Does he go with Cameron, or do we see him in MotoAmerica, or is it what takes precedence there?
As far as where I'll be next season, it's hard to say. I mean, I'm definitely going to be with Cam in the beginning of the year, get him sorted over there and get him kind of lined out. I don't know that there's a real answer to where I'll be spending my time. Will I still be in MotoAmerica paddock? Absolutely. Like I said, from from the management side, I've got riders over here and guys I got to look after and take care of. And, you know, Cam going overseas, it's a huge step, and it's one that definitely requires a lot of support. Because we want to make sure he's successful, you know, and that he has everything he needs to be successful. And it's kind of been one of those conversations we've been going back and forth trying to figure out, you know, how often I'll be over there and how often I won't. And a big part of that is travel. Like travel's, you know, traveling that much to 20 rounds of MotoGP is, you know, all across the world. It gets real expensive real quick. So,
yeah, right.
You know, I'll be there as needed. Let's put it that way. I'll be there if there is a need for me to be there, I'll figure out how to be there. And like I said, I just want to make sure Cam has all the tools he needs to be successful. And you know, if that means I have to be, I know I'll have to be there more early in this transition. But then as things get more comfortable, then I think, you know, hopefully, I think me and Cam have spoke about it. In his mind, he's kind of thinking like having me go to the flyaways in the beginning of the season. And then once they get to continental Europe, then, you know, he hopefully is already in a good spot by then to where I can step back a little bit. But who knows? We'll see what it looks like, you know, and it really, like I said, it depends, but I do believe he's got a good team behind him and he's got good support, and, you know, he'll have Hopper over there in his pit box as well, which is a big help. He's been there and done that. And he has, you know, a huge knowledge of all the tracks over there as well. And, you know, he's going to have people he can lean on, which is great, you know, and like I said, we'll just kind of figure it out as we go along, but you'll still be seeing me in the MotoAmerica paddock. Will I be at every single race? I don't know. Like, I honestly just don't know what my schedule is going to look like at this point. I haven't even sat down and tried to pencil it out yet to see how many races conflict.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I'd have to follow that up with, if you are here, is it going to be the dancing amongst the clients, or does someone step up and get the CAM program as far as what they get from you?
You know, honestly, like I said, Cam's deal, it's been a bit different. Mm-hmm. And, you know, all my clients are super important to me, and I want to see them all be successful, you know, and I want to see them have the tools to be successful. It's hard to say. I like I said, with Cam, I've got multiple roles. One being his manager / agent. The other role is, like you said, whatever you want to call it, whether it's a coaching, mentor, psychologist, I don't know what you call it, but it's just the guy who's there for him, right? And so that they're two very separate roles that I have with Cam, and so it's hard to say, you know, if it's an extra service.
Right.
Let's just put it that way, right? And so
I get it.
If there's a client who wants that extra service, then yeah, maybe we can figure that out and make it work. But who knows? Like I said, I'll still be at the races. I'll still be around at MotoAmerica. I've got to drop into some flat track races to check on our boy JD Beach.
There you go.
You know, I'm going to have a busy year for sure. I'm already looking at it going, man, okay, there's, you know, however many flat track races they're going to have that I don't think the schedule's fully out yet. You know, 10 MotoAmerica rounds on top of 20 MotoGP rounds. Like, dude, like it's
not going to be an easy one.
Yeah, not to say I'm going to be at every single one of all of those races, but like I said, I just got a lot of work to do to figure out my schedule and to be where I need to be. You know, and from the agent side, the most important thing is that I'm there for my clients, especially when their contracts are up. And so we'll have, which basically is outside of Cam, everybody next year. So
right,
everybody's contracts will be up. So that it's always an important time to be around to make sure that we get everything done we need to get done and get these guys, you know, the rides that they deserve, and you know, just help them on their path, and that's the biggest part.
That's cool. All right, Jake. Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. We've wanted you on for a while, and it just worked out that we could get it done today. So thanks for that. And Sean, I know you've got something to say before we get out of here.
Yeah, and I just want to say thanks to Jake too. I mean, it's been high time we got you on, Jake. I always love talking to you, and it's cool to be on this. So hope the fans enjoyed it. And speaking of the fans, one of the things I want to mention is, the fans had to put up with a lot with our season this year. I mean, with regard to whether they could come to our races, whether they couldn't, how to watch, things like that. And, you fans really hung in there, and you're pretty loyal, very loyal to our podcast. So we wanted to do something at the end of the year. So we had this idea where we have an autographed banner from the Brickyard event. Obviously, Indy was a big deal for us to be there, and it's signed by a ton of riders, including Wayne Rainey, all of the champions from all the classes, Cameron Beaubier, Cam Peterson, Richie Escalante and Rocco with his 2 championships. So all these guys are on it, as well as a bunch of other guys. And that's first place in this giveaway we're doing. Second is a couple of weekend passes to your choice of a MotoAmerica event. Third is a season-long pass to MotoAmerica Live Plus, our subscription streaming service. And fourth is a bunch of MotoAmerica swag. So there's a lot of different ways to win, or a lot of different things you can win, and a lot of ways to win. In fact, there are 9 different ways you can enter. And one of the best ways, at least as far as Paul and I are concerned, is to subscribe to our podcast, Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. And when you do that, that'll get you an entry into this giveaway. So look at our social media posts, and quite often we'll be posting information on this giveaway with either a link or a swipe up to enter this thing. And like I say, you put your name in, your email address, and then you have to enter through one of these ways. And the best way is subscribing to this podcast with Paul and I, and you get to hear great conversations with people like Jake Zemke, who just knocked it out of the park this week. And again, thanks, Jake.
Anytime, boys. Anytime. Thanks for having this. I think it's a great thing, and keeps people interested, and keeps them interested in the sport while the racing is not going on. So I think it's a really cool thing that you guys got going on.
Awesome.
All right. Well, you have a very good holiday with the family, and stay safe, and we'll catch up with you here soon.
Sounds good, guys.
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.